Welcome to Write With Me, session number 33, where I'm going to be working on one of my Escape to Australia series books, and it is called Harbour Lights in Sydney. I've got my notes right here. I do dictation and I do live streams and also recorded sessions of Write With Me where I actually do the dictation, where you can see and listen to me write my books. This is how I've done, over a decade of books using just a microphone recording and then doing it on my iPad right here. Just use the voice app and just record my books. So what I'm going to do is start with chapter 1 since I'm starting a new series and a new book and take you right into it. The main character's name is Darla. She's from the United States and she is about 35 years old and going to be deployed to Australia. Tough life. And the main male character is named Hugo. You'll find out more about Hugo soon. So let's get right into it, shall we? Let me get the recording started. Get a drink of water here. Good. And I have to look down at my notes, which are on my laptop. Maybe I should put my laptop higher. That would be nice. I'll have to work on that. Darla awoke in the apartment, completely dazed and jet-lagged. She stared at the ceiling, wondering where she was. It had been a 2.5-day trip around the world from her home in Minneapolis. She had been called out by her company to replace somebody who was going out on an 8-week leave. Darla was first excited about the trip. She thought, why not? She had nothing tying her down, and she had Darla had the flexibility to go wherever she wanted. So when the opportunity came up to go to Australia and work on her product line, she literally jumped at the chance. However, several weeks later, when she was laying in this unfamiliar bed, completely bleary-eyed in an Australian apartment in Sydney, she had second thoughts about her life choices. She heard unfamiliar sounds of the birds chirping outside of her window and wondered why they had to start up so early in the dusky morning where there was barely any light coming through the trees. She decided to get up. Darla had been laying there for over an hour, staring at the ceiling, and the ceiling fan was starting to make her dizzy as she watched it swirl overhead. She flipped off the covers and sat there in her short silk shorts, in her short silk shorts, and her teddy bear. Let's see. No, what would she have? In her I Love Australia t-shirt. She looked down at her chest, across her chest, and looked at the graphics of the t-shirt she bought in the airport and simply shook her head, swaying back and forth her dirty dish blonde hair, wondering why in the world she bought a tourist t-shirt when she was arriving and she would stay in Australia for 2 months. As she got up and began milling around the apartment, she tried to remember the instructions that Tegan had left her about the coffee maker and how to turn everything on. As she walked into the kitchen, padding through the room with her short white socks, she looked at the place. It was nice, contained, and small, exactly how she wanted it. Nothing too large, just 2 bedrooms. One was the bedroom and the other one was the office. It was painted a neutral beige color, something she fully expected, and the wood chairs looked comfortable, if not well worn. Walking over to the coffee machine, she clicked it several times but couldn't get it to turn on. Then she remembered Tegan told her to throw the switch by the power outlet to turn it on. So she clicked it and the unit powered up. In a few moments, she had coffee brewing, and she went to sit down and stare at her phone. The entire world had passed while she was flying on the long leg from Los Angeles to Sydney. As she sat there, she finished the coffee brewing. She thought about looking up the news and then shook her head. What was the point? She asked herself out loud. After draining her cup of coffee in several minutes, she texted Tegan because she knew, Darla knew that Tegan would be up. Immediately, Tegan called and said, Darla, you're up so early. You know I'm up early. That's how I roll. But I'm now on sabbatical. Is everything okay? Yes, but I'm starving. I don't really want to cook. I just want to go out and check out the neighborhood. I mean, even go for a jog or something fun. Well, you're in the right neighborhood. Manly's one of the best and most enjoyable in all of Sydney. Perfect. Do you have any recommendations? Let's see. Oh yeah, the boathouse at Shelley Beach. That place is super pretty. It's no more than a 15-minute walk if you're slow, but for you, if you half jog it, you can make it easily in probably 11, 12 minutes. Perfect. Does it have good, healthy food? Darla, seriously, would I give you a unhealthy choice? I know how much of a fitness fanatic you are. I mean, we literally work for an outdoor apparel company for active people. I mean, you know I wouldn't do that to you. Of course, I know. I'm so jet lagged. My eyes are wide open. I look like hell. I looked in the mirror, and it looks like I stuck my finger in the electric socket, and my hair looks like hell. Welcome to jet lag, my dear. So this is what you need to do. And Tegan began explaining the directions of walking down the neighborhood to Manly Beach, and then taking the walk along the boardwalk. No, what's it called? The walkway has a name. I'll look it up. After she finished her coffee, she put it in the sink and then quickly changed her clothes into some of the athletic outerwear that she wore. She knew it was going to be warm outside at the time of year that she arrived, and so she didn't worry too much about anything, but she knew there might be a light breeze. So she pulled off one of the lavender jackets that she had brought with her with the logo from the company. When she slipped on her Asics running shoes, she stepped outside the apartment and locked it, and then went downstairs. The vehicles looked unfamiliar to her. The neighborhood had a small street, and the houses seemed smaller than those in Minneapolis, where she came from. Everything looked similar, like a San Diego beach place or a Hilton Head beach town, but different. It was just enough not to feel real. She pulled up her phone and punched in the directions to the boathouse at Shelley Beach, and began making her way to Manly Beach. She hadn't even been able to see anything since she arrived at night, and she met Tegan, who let her in the apartment and got her set up before leaving back to her husband. As Darla walked, she felt the comfortable cush of her Asics running shoes pressed up against her feet, and it made her feel happy. She jogged in place for a moment and thought about just simply taking off down the street, but then she realized that she didn't want to get sweaty before she arrived at the restaurant. Plus, if she ran into a cute guy with an Australian accent, she certainly didn't want to look like a wreck. As Darla felt the bun on the back of her head, where she skewered it with a chopstick she found she put a scrunchie in the bun in her hair. She felt it to make sure it wasn't going to fall out, and then began strolling through the neighborhood, feeling the energy of Australia being on the other side of the planet from her world. In a few minutes, she walked through a promenade, and there lay Manly Beach before her. The turquoise water with gentle waves lapping against the caramel-covered sand, with a gentle breeze flowing onshore, with seagulls with a slightly different call than she was used to on the Great Lakes. Her mouth, unadorned by lipstick or lip gloss, stayed open. She hadn't even bothered to put makeup on because she said, screw it. If anybody judges me, then, well, they'll just have to deal with it. But as she stood there leaning against the railing to the walkway, on the walkway along Manly Beach, she couldn't get over how beautiful the scene was. There were very few people out walking, only a couple construction workers down the walkway where she was supposed to be headed, and a few couples walking hand in hand, and a couple of, and one female jogger walked by. Darla looked the woman up and down, comparing what she was wearing to what her products were. And she knew the leggings looked really good, and her sports bra fit her very well on her chest, but on the back it had a different crisscross design than she had seen before. She pulled out her phone, glanced around her shoulder to make sure no one was looking, and snapped a couple photos of the woman as she disappeared into the distance. Standing there at the beach, she stepped down one of the stairs onto the beach and felt it beneath her shoes. She thought about kicking her shoes off and walking along the beach, but the grumbling in her belly, told her that the beach would have to wait. Looking down at her button-down white blouse and capri length black leggings, she thought about if she'd brought the appropriate wear for the boathouse. But she looked at the menu and looked at the place, and it seemed pretty chill. As she began walking along the Marine Parade, a long promenade of faded large red bricks, she enjoyed the smells that came up from the beach. They were wildly different than in Minneapolis, from the different smells in the city that she experienced. As she walked along, Darla felt the humidity pressing in on her as it came off the water and swirled around the buildings. The palm trees? The unfamiliar trees swayed back and forth in the gentle morning breeze. She was surprised that the breeze, how moist the breeze was, brushing across her skin, flexing the hairs on her forearm. In fact, even though it was warm, the air motion gave her a chill, and she reached up and rubbed both of her arms. Looking down at her... Let's see, what type of watch would you have? Looking down at her square Cartier watch, she wondered if, she reminded herself that wasn't a swimming watch and she needed to change out to her sports watch before she hit the beach. I don't want to trash this thing. This gift from my parents was something else, she reminded herself. As she began walking towards, walking south along the Marine Parade, she saw that one of the buildings had construction going on it, and she said, damn, now I'm going to have to backtrack all the way. But then she saw a couple people skirting past the construction workers and realized that she would get by. The building that she had to walk by was a large cinder block building with glass windows all across it with a view. It looked like a restroom to her, even though she couldn't identify it. As she came up around the corner at the pinch point, she encountered a tall man with brown hairs, a solid head of shortly cropped brown hair and piercing blue eyes. She was shocked by how good the man looked, and when he smiled at her, she stepped left to dodge him, and he stepped right. Again, she tried to step to the right, and then he stepped to the left. Immediately, she broke her stride and laughed and said, "I am so sorry. I'm jet lagged from my travel." The man smiled kindly at her and said, "Oh, no problem." And the strength of his Australian accent just bowled her over. Between the man's looks and his strong physique, with his chest-tight synthetic workout shirt and jogging shorts, with his two-tone yellow running shoes, she could tell the man was fit and worked out well. "I'm sorry about that, please." And he said, No, please." He stepped backwards and waved his hands on. "And after you, miss." She walked by and giggled, and then continued on her way. Several paces past, she glanced over her shoulder to look at the attractive man, who had also stopped and looked at her. He smiled and waved, and she blushed hard as she involuntarily brought her hand up and waved to him. She made her way on, thinking about that man and his accent, and wondered what it would be like to meet somebody in Australia besides just a casual crossing. By the time she got to Shelley Beach and the boathouse, there were several people already sitting on the wood cane chairs with checker pattern blue and white mesh to sit on. The server asked her if she would like to sit inside or outside, and Darla said, "Oh, please, outside if you don't mind. Is that okay?" And the server replied, "No, of course not. Not a problem." Darla took her seat on one of the outside tables and watched the world go by as the sun slowly began raking across the ocean, making everything sparkle and adding energy to the scene that she hadn't expected. After ordering and the server bringing her a avocado toast, she laughed at the breakfast choice she had thought about. She'd actually considered getting the power meal with the bacon and eggs and toast, and she shook her head and said, "No, I need to keep my figure here. I don't want to gain 15 pounds while on a trip when I work for an athletic company." As she put the white napkin in her lap and leaned down and picked up the toast to take a crunch, a couple walked by and looked at her and smiled, and just as she'd taken a bite with avocado now on her cheek, she blushed and tilted her head down and covered her mouth and said, "Sorry." They both laughed and waved at her as they walked by. Darla looked at the scene where she was and the beautiful location and thought how lucky she was to have the job where she could be sent around the world, but also that she was there alone, with an empty seat staring at her across the table, where at one time, a decade before, somebody should have been sitting there, but through circumstances that she still didn't understand, she was now sitting alone in Australia. She wondered if that attractive man who she did the unexpected dance with in the boardwalk, that she was sure she would never see again, knew how to dance. All of a sudden, 8 weeks in Australia, as she crunched on her avocado toast, enjoying the delicacy of the fresh bread and the different tasting avocados, made her think 8 weeks was simply not going to be enough. Perfect. That was chapter 1 of Harbor Lights in Sydney, a romance based in Sydney. This is part of my Escape to Australia romance series. I record these videos and then I take the transcript, and let me shut off my recording here. Okay, and then I'm going to change the name. I'm working on it here. Just one moment. Harbor Lights, Chapter 1. And what I do is I just take the dictated text here and copy it into my writing software called Scrivener, and that's how I write all my books. It's a software I've been using for like 13 years. How do I know that? Because I had to get a new laptop, and the license said it's been 13 years. 2,593 words. I love this. There you go. That actually worked pretty well. I was kind of struggling remembering the scene in Sydney and what Manly Beach looked like, and the promenade, but and it's just when I'm recording, trying to keep this all in my head, do dictation, do recording. It's like when I play the piano, and as soon as I record it, all of a sudden I go down to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. That's all part of the writing process. But thank you very much for watching. My name is Aaron Belsing. That's my pen name that I write romance under. And you can see I have the Maui Desire series and other romance books, but also I write under my real name, Aaron R. Linsdau, where I write thrillers, where you can check those out at Aaron R. Linsdau. Please check out other videos with my Write With Me sessions. I tried to share as much of the writing process as possible so you can see what it's like for a working author, yours truly, to write and dictate and bring books to you so you can enjoy them. Thank you very much for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe.